The following readings are from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Each week we read from both scriptures as prescribed by Yogananda ji and by his guru Sri Yukteswar ji, who was guided by Babaji to compare the two scriptures to show the same underlying truths between them. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The title for this week is Abiding in God. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda often emphasized, more often to his disciples than to the general public, but also to everyone generally, for it was a universal teaching, the importance of attunement. For divine understanding cannot be created, it must be perceived. To the disciples, Yogananda spoke of the importance of attunement with the Guru. To others, he urged the importance at least of attuning oneself to higher consciousness. Can an eagle rise without support from the sustaining air? Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bring forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall ye be my disciples. How can we abide in him? Jesus says, if my words abide in you. By words he meant not only his spoken words, but his vibrations, his consciousness, of which the words are only an expression. We must abide by the teachings, but we must also absorb those teachings into ourselves, that they become our own experience. For disciples of this path, the more in their hearts they live consciously in the presence of the Masters, the more they will find the divine presence living within them. And for all truth seekers, whether disciples or not, the more they live sustained inwardly by the awareness of God's presence, the higher they will find themselves soaring in wisdom and joy. For the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, I am the source of everything. From me all creation emerges. Blessed with this realization, the wise, awe-stricken adore me. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramhansa Yogananda, a book of prayer poems. This one is entitled, Make me the lark of life, looking only for thy reign. I am the lark of life, flitting through thy skies of cosmic delight, thirstily looking upward for every raindrop of thy inspiration. Filter through the heavy dark clouds of limited awareness, and shower on all the reminders of thy omnipresence. I will savor attentively every raindrop of perception that touches my parched, craving tongue. I will drink thy inspirations deeply into myself, and will welcome any drenching by thy raindrops of outer happiness that gently fall upon my frail, sense-driven body. My age-long thirst will cease only when thy touch has cooled my inner craving, and soothed the upward straining ardor in my body. The storm of hopeless despondency has yielded to the raindrops of thy peace. Softly now they moisten my long withered being. Now will I flit everywhere, singing songs of my contentment. Oh, make me thy lark, seeking no other drink but thy solace, sprinkling down from the heaven of thy presence everywhere. Well, I'm sorry to say that I'm not well today, so you'll have to forgive me. The sitting and the constant clearing of the throat. We're trying to get something hot to try to fix the situation. What happened was that I don't know if you know, why would you, that I'm allergic to wheat. I know that I'm allergic to wheat. But unfortunately, I ate something that I was assured had no wheat. Dharmini did also. She's also allergic to wheat. What are the chances? And if nothing else, it's convenient. I mean, if one of us was allergic to wheat and the other was allergic to cheese, I mean, what could we do? Nothing. But unfortunately, when we eat it, it's sort of like you get the flu. You know, just a long, drawn-out fatigue and illness and so on. It was fun. I was mentioning this to Ashwini, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about the wheat poisoning." And I thought that's the perfect way to put it, because that's what it feels like. And Prasanna's comment was, one man's wheat is another man's poison. So, so anyway, I ate it first. Dharmini ate it later. She's still recovering. So am I. But I thought I could prop up the body. And plus, I wanted to be with you all and see you all after a little bit of a gap. It's so nice to see you, and thank you for coming. It really is a joy. I wanted to appreciate the flowers that are on the altar, those garlands and the flowers. It's so beautiful, and it just the sight of it opens the heart. And it's a help for all of us, because just as much as it's a offering of devotion, when we place it there and when we see it there, even if we haven't placed it there. Oh, I didn't see you there. Hi. Yes, both of you. We feel it as an expression of our devotion. And if someone else has placed it there, we think, oh, thank God somebody expressed my devotion. Thank you, meaning ours, but on my behalf also. But also it's like the flowers are also the masters showing their love for us, too. We come in, some of us, just trailing clouds of glory from just a uplifted week, completely living in God, undisturbed. Others of us are more or less clawing our way here, scraping, trying to knock down the door to be let in, to, basically like get into the emergency room to try to recover after the week we've had. And then to be greeted with the masters and the flowers, it's again a reminder of God's love, God's comfort, God's presence. Don't worry about it. As that chant says, all things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance, just patiently, brings you to victory. Once you have God, you'll want nothing more. And so, again, we need these regular reminders, because the storm is raging at different times, the mud is coming, and, after satsang and after kind of getting charged up, sometimes I would notice I would charge into Monday, and it was just that I could see God's presence everywhere, behind everything, even that bad thing, no problem. And second day, it was like, okay, there's a little bit of mud, but mud, when it's outside, is best thought of as earth. It is fine. It's the earth element. It's no problem. And I don't mean literal mud. I mean sort of psychological mud. But anyway, just no problem. By Wednesday, it's sort of, it's fine. And then by Thursday, it's sort of, does this ever end? And then on Friday, someone will say, don't forget God. And I'll say, God yada? Enge? And then by Saturday, I don't even know. It's all just passed out. And then just enough to claw back into Sunday and start over again. We have that experience when we're really hungry and we can't eat for some reason, some maybe logistical reason, and then we finally are able to. Or if we have a bad headache or some kind of pain, and then someone gives a tablet or some kind of something fixes, and what a relief. If we, even something as simple as coming home from the day and having a bath just resets the day. resets the consciousness. And of course, our real bath, our real cleansing is in meditation, just giving it all back to God and just opening up and being filled with His presence. That feeling of relief is something that we should crave, and that feeling of, meaning seek and hunger after, and that feeling of discomfort, we should remember, I can do something about this. If I'm physically uncomfortable, let me do some energization exercises if I can. Or if I have too much of a headache, let me try to do Hong Sa. Swamiji said a lot of times when he experienced pain. Could you bring me the Ray's book? A lot of times when he experienced pain, he would do Hong Sa in order to concentrate, to get out of the pain, either to take his mind off of it, or, as he said, sometimes the pain, for him, this was pain like during surgery, but anyway, pain would be so strong that he couldn't ignore it, so then he would not resist it, and he would fully concentrate on it, and he said, get to the center of the pain, and then it disappears. So, I don't mean let's all try it now, but what I mean is that I have noticed, for example, he told the story of Master, that they were moving the wishing well, which is very, I think, 2 tons or something, heavy thing at Mount Washington, and it fell. You might say, how can you pick up and move a well? It wasn't connected into the ground. It was just like a huge stone, pot, basically. They were moving it, and Master was moving it too, and it slipped and fell, and it crushed his foot. And he immediately, his face, registered the pain, was sort of contorted in pain. And then he said, I'll show you something, to those who were there. And he said, I put my mind here. And then he could walk, his face relaxed, he could walk around on it, nothing. He said, now I'll bring my mind back down to the body. And again, suddenly you could see he was feeling the pain. And he repeated this back and forth a few times, holding his mind here. And Swamiji said, if you hold your mind here, you can find that it relieves the pain. And I have tried this a few times when I had a headache and either I didn't feel like taking a tablet or maybe I did, but it didn't do anything. Just putting my mind here consciously, following their advice, their teaching. I can't say the pain vanished, but what I found was it was reduced a little bit. And I realized that one of the reasons it was reduced is I was no longer fighting it. That part of the pain is the tension, even physical, saying, I don't like this, I don't want this, it shouldn't be. And that adds to the pain, even physically. And that just relaxing and saying, okay, it's there. I'm not saying I love it, but I am saying that I'm not resisting it, I'm not fighting it. Thank you. So, this not resisting, the pain is happening. I don't want it. I'm not eager to do this every day, but since it's happening and since I can't do anything else about it, let me at least not fight it. Fine. This was true. I talked about getting caught up in the mud. This was true of one of Swamiji's brother disciples. He told the story, Swamiji, that this monk, this was at the time in Master's life when he got the lake shrine property. In fact, it was interesting. There was a story of this man who owned this property in the middle of Los Angeles. That's this beautiful, hilly sort of, all man-made. It was just made for a film. But in those, it was early days, and so you could just take a part of land and do this. And then now the whole city has grown up around it, as we've seen in Chennai too. I mean, Adiyar used to just be trees, nothing. Now you can find a tree here and there. But so this sort of man-made sort of bowl and beautiful thing, this man was wanting to give it to, to basically sell it at a low price to some kind of he wanted it to be for God. He didn't know how. And he didn't think of let's build a church on it. And he had this dream about self-realization fellowship. Somehow he heard that. He didn't know that was Master's organization. So he had this dream, and so he looked up in the phone book and he found Self-Realization Fellowship or Church of All Religions. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was Church of All Religions. Anyway, he found it. And he called Master. He called the main number, and Master answered. And in those days, Master was not in the pattern of picking up the phone. I mean, it was 1949 or 50, almost the end of Master's life. But Master did pick up the phone. And the man said, hello, is this Self-Realization Fellowship? And Master said, yes, when can I see the property? And the man said, what? When can I see the property? So he said, no, wait a second. Anyway, but they started off on the right foot, and he ended up selling it to Master. But one of the things that it needed was it was based, so much of it was just mud, and it needed to be constantly watered, and it's very dry in that area, and for plants to grow in it. And so this monk had to be in the mud, sloshing around on the hillside. It was very hard to keep stable footing, and he had to be pouring all this water, and he kept falling and getting all muddy, and he just hated it. And so this job that he had every day, because the jobs were shared by all of them, except not this one wasn't shared. It was always his. He had to just be doing this, and he complained about it. And every morning he woke up thinking, good morning. Oh, God. Now I have to go do that job again. But this went on. His resisting, his complaining for some time. And then one morning, after his meditation, he thought, well, somebody has to do this job, and I can't help that it's me. So as long as I'm doing it, fine. I'm looking forward to it. And so when he went down after breakfast to the work site, they said, no, you won't do that job anymore. And, I mean, the person assigning the jobs was not Master, who could look at him and say, and it was nothing like that. It just happened that it was taken away from him. He was given someone else. That job was given to someone else. He was given something else. And so that watering of the mud, a lot of things that we do are of that nature. It's not necessarily a wonderful thing. It's not something we love, but it's something that needs to be done. If nothing else, you can say, I'm sparing someone else from having to do it. Maybe that gives it meaning. But we just have to, anything can be joyful if we change our perspective. Jyotishji gave the example of, suppose you are in an airport. I've just got to set this timer here so it goes off at the right time. Jyotishji gave the example that suppose you're in the airport and somebody bumps you from behind rather roughly. Of course, our first reaction would be like, hey, what are you standing here? All of that. But suppose, maybe not your reaction, just mine. But so suppose you turn and then you see the person is blind. They have a cane and so on. Someone's leading them. They didn't see you. And your whole perspective hopefully would change. You say, no, then I'd shout louder. Well, then see me afterwards. So, but most of us would go, oh, my God. Again, the pain in our back hasn't changed. The fact of being rudely knocked, of being surprised, of being frightened even, if it sort of disturbed you out of some deep thought or some deep non-thought, speaking again from recent experience of illness, that shock, it changes. None of the facts have changed. Even again, suppose there's pain. That hasn't changed, but our perspective has changed. And so much of abiding in God, living in God, keeping God close, is also about trying to change our perspective. Let me find a way to work this out. Why? Because the ego is saying, this is not fair. This is not right. This should not have happened, or this should not be happening. Or even simpler, I don't like. That's the root of all karma. I don't like, or I like. But I like, I don't like. Venum Vendam. That's it. The whole life is Venum Vendam. And especially the Vendam. I don't like. But if we can find a way to talk ourselves into it being fair somehow, or being okay, or even if it's unfair. This was a wonderful thing. Ashwini and I were in a class together, and someone asked some question about how they were being mistreated. And it was perfectly valid what they were saying. It was true. And it was not right what the other people were doing. But then Ashwini led with, instead of, well, you can pray for them, you can call to Master, which all things she might have said later. That's what was sort of in my mind, the thinking of the answer. She said, but life basically isn't fair. And we have to find a way to work with those situations that are unfair. You see, if life is fair all the time, meaning, and it feels fair, there would really be no spiritual path. Or, to put it another way, we would be done. Because we would say, it is the unfair that is prodding us to grow, prodding us to meditate, prodding us to do Kriya. When I was a school teacher, I saw this in its most fundamental form, working with children. And as anyone knows who has ever met a child in their life, especially once they reach a certain age, it's not fair. He got all this and I didn't get. And that continues to the age of 90. Swamiji said that you see these politicians in this sort of global arena, countries arguing, they didn't give us the same that they gave. It's the same thing. And who is going to meet my needs? And so we are going to meet our needs. God is going to meet our needs. And again, you can try it the other way, and good luck. See, it just doesn't work. Even this statement from the Bible, I wanted to explain it a little bit because it's sometimes misunderstood. I am the vine and ye are the branches. It really, I am the tree trunk, I am the tree, and you are the branches. Vines have branches, but when's the last time you saw a vine and counted the branches? It's not as common. It was there, but to think of a tree and branches is easier. I am the tree, ye are the branches. He that lives in me, that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. Okay, pretty straightforward. Sounds like Krishna. If a mind lives not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, meaning he's cut off, and is withered, because the branches, when they're cut off, they wither. And it was funny that Whispers from Eternity poem also said, I am withered, but then I feel the quenching from your raindrops of love and joy, and I start to unwither, start to return to life. And that's also what I was saying about, going through the week. As after a satsang, then kind of I would go through the week and then start to wither and dry up, and then recover and recharge again. And men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. So, not to worry too much. So, this, you can imagine the ways in which this could be misunderstood. Agree with me, or there's the fire, and guess who's going there? It's not that at all. It's that, first of all, when we feel away from God, guess what happens? We get burnt. It isn't that God wants to burn us. As Master said, you may put your hand on the stove, and your hand will be burned by the stove, but the stove has no wish to burn you. It's not like the stove puts up little signs saying, please touch here, it'll be fine. It's just that we didn't know, and then we get hurt. And if nothing else, that's how we learn. That's another way to deal with an unfair situation, is to say, well, now I know. Now I understand that this person who I thought was trustworthy is not trustworthy. So it doesn't mean I will cut them off. You may not be able to, especially if they live in the same house. But that I will be a little more careful. I will not just assume that we've communicated clearly and that yes means yes. Yes may mean maybe. Or yes may mean if it suits me. And so I have learned. And so it doesn't mean, again, to close our hearts. So it's a tough lesson. If we close our hearts, we suffer. The other person doesn't know anything. They showed a situation, it was portrayed funny in a movie. There were 3 people involved in some situation, and there was one of them who was really bad and got the others to do bad things with him. And they showed the first, after all these bad things had happened, they showed the first person in lying in bed awake late at night, kind of obviously disturbed. Someone recently told me about a difficult situation. Listen, I'll take care of it. Don't lose any sleep over it. And I didn't have the heart to say, too late. So I was losing sleep over it. Anyway, then they showed the other person in this movie who was sitting up in bed, kind of. It was the days before cell phones, otherwise they would have been on their phones. And then they showed the bad guy in bed. You see? It doesn't mean bad people get away with everything, but it means that these things that we worry about so much on someone else's behalf doesn't do anything for them, and they may not be worried at all. You see, someone once asked Swamiji that, Swamiji, we are good people and we suffer so much, and the evil people are having such a good time. And basically, it was very charming. This was in Pune. And Swamiji said, their good time won't last. And it's not a curse. It's just the way of the world. If we go against the law, we end up getting hurt, like touching that stove. It's how we learn. It's not a punishment. It's not a judgment. It's not, a harsh criticism. It's that there's something in me. To put it another way, what can I correct in myself? And say, no, what can I correct in that person? No, that is that person's job. It is us to do what we can and to correct ourselves. It may be to take a vacation from that person, if possible. In other words, there may be outward things you can do too. Prasanna said something rather insightful about a situation we were all in, meaning it helped me to understand too. He said, I was pondering this problem, and I felt the inspiration and I felt the calmness after getting centered and asking God. He said, but then I also felt, and I must do something. So please don't misunderstand. I'm not just saying, just change your perspective and everything will be fine. We may change our actions also, and have a new idea of what we can do about the situation. But also sometimes we can't, like if it's a long-term thing. I was in a job where there was a lot of disharmony among the people working. It was a small group of people, and they were always this sort of politics and bickering and grumpiness and so on. And in the beginning, I was all caught up in it. Like, no, don't be upset. And, whose side am I on? But I see both sides. And why is everybody fighting? I've only been here a week. And, yuck. And yet, this was my job. And so there was no changing it. And what someone told me when I was... Because no one was particularly mad at me unless I stuck my, nose where it didn't belong, which was often. That's how I learned. But someone said to me, listen, anything that comes to you, this was someone, a disciple of Master, anything that comes to you is your karma too. And so it's a learning opportunity. And once you learn these lessons, you will no longer attract them. And I thought, And besides, what choice did I have? I had the job, so I might as well do something useful spiritually with it. And so I don't know what I was learning. I don't know what I was trying to do, but I just kind of went there day after day trying to do what felt like the right thing. And a lot of the right thing in this case was letting them work it out themselves. And in my case, too, I didn't take sides because we were all working together anyway, so what good does it do to take sides? You say, yes! And then tomorrow you go to that same person, excuse me, can I have your help with something? Be very careful with your ongoing relationships because you blast someone on Monday and then on Wednesday you need them to sign a check. So... Again, why make life unnecessarily difficult for yourself? Because we also, if you say, no, that never happens, has it ever happened to you? That somebody loves to just scream and then the next day says, oh, by the way, could you do me a favor? Now you want to, so I'm seeing that one is resonating more. Okay, So, first of all, let us be careful with ourselves then. Not to say, excuse me, could you please record this and send it to this address, of my neighbor or my boss or whatever. No. The thing is for us to say, we know how we don't like that, so let us not do that to other people. Okay? And then, when it does happen, we can also say, try to relax, try to be calm, try to in other words, or try to separate. It's best, as Swamiji said, don't talk. When you're upset, don't talk right away, but do talk. In other words, when we're upset, we end up saying more than we mean, or we're just too rattled and we're not even addressing the situation clearly. So we're bringing up, you did this, and my professor did this, and my mom did this, and my dad did this, and it's all coming on your head. And this person's like, I've only known you a year. I haven't known you that long enough to cause this much abuse and trauma. So we have to be careful. We're not laying the sins of everybody at this one person's door. And so we have to sort of let me be an adult now and but then do talk about it if you can. There are some people who just can't. I remember one person shouted, and it was not my favorite experience. And I was thinking of these are the teachings and don't talk right away, but do talk. So I approached him later and said, I know you were upset, and I'm sorry for making that mistake. It's just helpful for me, though, especially when we're in public and with others, if you could try not to shout. And so then he shouted more. We were in private, so maybe he felt. And then he said, when I was young and in college, I got upset with my roommate, and I suddenly realized I had my hands around his throat. Then I saw a psychiatrist, and he said, just shout, don't strangle people. So I tried to take something positive out of that for myself. Like, you should be glad I'm only shouting. So I decided not to talk to that person when things are difficult, or even when things were not difficult. Some people you just have to say, they're going to learn their lessons with other people. I'm going to take a break. So, it's important, though, if you can't talk to the person, to talk to God, talk to Master, talk to Swamiji, and be open. My feelings are hurt. In other words, if we don't say that, if we just, it's fine, doesn't matter, nothing can be done anyway, I'm trapped in this living hell, so I don't feel bad at all, it's fine. We just keep swallowing until it ends up with acid in our stomach and we have an ulcer. It was funny, one person I was arguing with constantly, only because he said everything I was doing in my life was wrong, and for some reason I objected to that. Anyway, it was a relative, so I couldn't easily get out of it. I finally had to say, I'm having stomach pains because of this stress. I'm having ulcers. Oh, okay. Okay, well, if you're having ulcers, then I don't want to argue with you. Just, what? That worked? I mean, everything you do is inherently wrong, and then, everything that I cared about was just being trashed, and then, but if you have ulcers, no problem then. So that worked for a time and got me out of it for a time. So, anyway, we don't want the ulcers, so we have to be able to take it to somebody. Somebody has to listen to us. Who listens? Amma, the big Amma, Divine Amma. And Master, who is also Amma. Swamiji on one Mother's Day, Sunday satsang was on a Mother's Day, and we had Mother's Day not too long ago. And Swamiji said, this was in Italian, and he said, you all are the children, and I am the mother. And then he said, it's not possible, but it's true. That's how he felt, that he was trying to help everybody, but he was also saying it with God's love. If we tried to get too personal and went up to him and said, Amma, it didn't work. Because he wanted to make us strong in ourselves. And he also, when someone said, you said we shouldn't be attached, but can we be attached to you? He said, well, what attracts you about me? He said, listen, you don't even know me. Which was an interesting thing to say. And he said, what attracts you about me is not so much me, but what you see coming through me. And so let's remember that too, that let's have God come through us when we're interacting with other people. Let's see God coming through other people when they're interacting with us. Remember the blind person in the airport. Most people are blind, even if they can see. They don't realize the impact of their actions on other people. Or even if they do realize, when they're perfectly calm and have had coffee and also a piece of chocolate, all of us, when pressed against the wall, when we have a headache or one bad thing happens too much, and then we just lose it. And that's the easiest way to forgive someone for losing control, if especially they're apologetic afterwards, is that, look, I'm not always in control either. I get provoked also. I regret when I have, perhaps shouted at you, again, if it's a close friend or relation. And so I know what it feels like, that, how frustrated we get with ourselves. And so I forgive you. It's over. Just because, again, also because if you do make a mistake and then someone says, I can't believe you did it, and I can't believe you did it, and then Monday, I can't believe it, Wednesday, I still can't believe it, Friday, oh my God, that you sort of feel like you're under constant, prison sentence for that one misstep, which again may not be, the person may be justified, but how nice it would be to be forgiven. And so again, do that yourself, then you forgive. But do it sincerely. I don't mean, I forgive you. Or, I forgive you, you stupid physical. It's got to be sincere. In other words, for your sake. Doesn't matter the other. Meaning, get to a calm place, which means shed many tears on your pillow for God, with God. So God will never misunderstand you. The Guru is always on your side. Jyotishji said that once there was a problem at Ananda, and there were two people involved, and one of them was it was in a team, a department doing work, and one of the people hired was not really a part of Ananda anymore. Never really had been. This was at Ananda village. I mean, sort of had been, but had really pulled away, but was still working there. And because she was so skilled, she, it was great. We were grateful to have her work, her help, and all those things. And anyway, it's, sometimes those things happen. It doesn't have to be only Ananda people. But they were discussing the problem and how to try to help these people. And someone said to Jyotish, well, there's her, but then there's the other woman she's arguing with. And because that woman is part of Ananda, we really have to take her side. And Jyotishji said, no, we are on everyone's side. You see, it's just not worth it. Trying to help people work things out if you have to, otherwise let them work it out, otherwise pray. You have to see what works. How do you know if something's working? How do you know how involved you should get? Because you will feel it in your heart that either this is generating harmony, and people are saying, yes, thank you, I appreciate that. Or they're saying something else. Or they're looking. When I would give lots of advice when I was young in the early days of the path, I noticed the silence I would be greeted with after the advice. And I thought, are they awe-stricken by the depth of truth in my words? Are they so overwhelmed with gratitude for me pointing out their mistakes that they can't even find the words to express it? But I noticed there wasn't a smile, and I began to infer over time that, maybe this isn't so helpful. You see, sometimes we are crazy. And like if you have a fever or you're saying something that doesn't work, we don't know it, but you can infer. Because when you're crazy, you don't know it. If you knew it, you wouldn't be crazy. You go, oh, I better... But you can tell by the looks on people's faces and by the silence sometimes, maybe the problem is me. And so, after one particularly brutal experience like that, brutal for the other person, unfortunately, because of all the advice and the amount of advice and the hours of advice that I gave. He did come to me asking a question, but boy. I went up to Dhyanaji and I said, Dhyanaji, how do you give advice? She said, I don't. So I think that's a very wise point of view. So the thing is, when things are difficult, when things aren't difficult, the more we live in God, the more we feel God's presence, the more we turn to God with our griefs. You know how a child, if it falls and looks around, and if everybody is like, that's fine, come on, stand up. But in another situation, if the child falls and it looks around and then there is Amma, it just collapses. And so that's us. That when we have to, if we fall down and we're surrounded by strangers, let us just quickly walk out of the room or emotionally get out of the place, then go to Master and Amma and just cry. Or just share, or just write if you want to. Write in a journal, just or again, the core of all anger is my feelings were hurt. If it's from something like that. And even deeper than that is I don't like. In this case, I don't like. And another way to look at it is, again, anger comes when our desires are blocked. And so that if we're angry, it must mean we had a desire that then was blocked. And when I was trying to apply that, there was one situation in my life that universal truth did not apply to. I found the exception. I was ready to write to the Bhagavad Gita saying, put a footnote for Dharmarajan in this one case. And I realized that I did have a desire, actually. I had a desire to be treated in a certain way. The same basic decency that any human being would afford. I had a desire still that you should not treat me that way. And that was a desire, and I didn't get it, and I was mad about it. And so I had to work on that. Swamiji said, never be concerned with how other people treat you, in terms of that they owe you something. Because it's very practical. When you do that, you may say, well, then they'll really run over me. But it's not true. People feel that spine. They feel that strength. And as my friend had said in this other situation, over the 7 years of working with all these difficult political infighting people, at the end of it, I left the job to another job at the right time, 6 years. And they all were still fighting. But I realized, because someone pointed it out to me, they said they all fight with each other, but you're the only one who everyone is friends with, despite their arguing with each other. And I didn't realize that that's what I was trying to do unconsciously. I was trying to build a friendship with each person just for my own sake at first, just so they wouldn't shout at me all the time. And another thing for you, which did happen. And so it was just, let me try to build a friendship. Like I said, it wasn't even conscious. And so, and yet, at the end of that, I was taken out of it. And that particular karma has never come back again. Probably because God said that's all you could learn in this life. Just wait till next life. Who knows? But the point was that it did sort of leave my aura. And I realized I tried to get less involved with other people's relationships with each other. His relationship is with her. Her relationship is with her. His relationship is with him. We can't always be shoving our oar in trying to help or trying to worry. Pray, sure, definitely pray. If you have Kriya, do Kriyas for that person. If they don't have Kriya, or even if they do, a few Kriyas, meaning, one set of Kriyas, not meaning out of your whole. Anyway, I can't go too deeply into Kriya, but you know what I mean. A percentage of Kriyas. So, but all of the things that we are seeking in people, we will find in God. That's what we learn. That's what even, that was so wonderful that you played that song, God's Call Within. It is the song for this topic, abiding in God. Listen, whispering. It's Divine Mother speaking, Swamiji said. It's God's call within means Divine Mother's call to the devotee. Is really what it is. He originally wrote it as a piano piece and then later added these words to it. And listen within your soul. Listen within your soul. Hints of laughter, hints of joy. A whispering within your soul. Hints of laughter, hints of joy. Sweet songs of sadness, of quenchless yearning. For the light, for my love. You see, that's what's at the heart of all of our desires is God's love, that satisfaction, that joy. That doesn't change, that doesn't go away. And the truth is, it's at the heart of everyone's desire. So it isn't we as devotees understand that we should seek God and I am seeking God. I'm no longer a fool. It's not that. Everyone is seeking that in different ways. And everyone will come to that realization. In other words, we can find things that unite us with everyone, as opposed to holding ourselves, I am the yogi. And don't think like that. Because again, it doesn't help us much. I mean, if somebody says yes, and I am the criminal, say we'll go and, have at it just somewhere else. Someone was telling us that the population of a certain city increases by 30% in the morning and then goes back down again at night. He said because people from the neighboring country come across the bridge and they do their jobs or they commit their crimes and then they go back. I just thought it was such a funny image, like, I have to go to the city to commit my crimes. Thank you very much. And then time to go home. It's just fascinating. So we want to always have God with us, God within us, God all the time. And so as I was saying about this thing in the Bible, that Jesus is saying, look, if you step out of my protection, you're going to get burned. Again, if you touch the stove, you're going to get burned. That's all. You can say it's not your fault until you learn, meaning do learn. That's what the stove is trying to say. I mean, just imagine you're going towards the stove and the stove is saying, stop, don't, wait. Too late. And God is doing that too for some difficult things that we get into. That God and Master and Swamiji can be saying to us, don't. Especially if we're listening and we're asking. That's what it means to abide in God. We involve Him, we involve the Guru in our lives. We ask and then we listen for an answer. I remember once I had helped someone in a particularly what I considered significant way, and had hosted the person and helped them in different ways when they were staying at my place. And then the day they left, I found out from someone else that they had been talking against me the whole time. And I had this I had been recently reading the Mahabharata, and I remembered how Karna's false reasoning was that Duryodhana took me in when no one else did, and I have taken the salt of his table, and how can I fight against him therefore? A good thing, but remember there are different levels of dharma. If he then says, I want you to go, assassinate this innocent person, say, well, you did give me a nice dessert too, so okay, what's the address? I mean, no. You don't just do anything for the person just because. So anyway, I was filled with this kind of fury. I could call it righteous indignation, but it was fury that after all of that, and I never hear a word of it, and then it comes to me behind. I mean, it's different if the person was arguing to my face, even. But no, and then finally, and so I decided I'm going to say something. It's not going to be much. Master, do you want me to say something? Good, I'm going to say something. He didn't really get a chance to answer. Swamiji said, okay, if I say something if it's not. Oh, okay, good, I'm going to do it. So and I'm feeling more and more uncomfortable. And I said, no, it's just the energy building. And it's going to be fuel. And then I put someone answered the phone. And it was the person's cell phone, but it was someone else. And I said, could I please speak to so-and-so? And just a moment. And it was the only time in my life I literally heard Swamiji's voice in my head, stop! And so I went, because I couldn't ignore that. Wait, when you say stop, do you mean like stop holding back? Like, no, it was, so when the person answered the phone, hello? I said, hi, I just wanted to make sure you got there safely. Oh, how nice of you. Thank you. Yes, I did. Okay, great. Have a good... It wasn't fair. But I got that guidance, and I can only imagine that despite my broad vision when being so furious, which is of course a joke, because when we're furious, we can see only one thing. Remember, that's what we read, that anger flames to infatuation, the thought that this only in this one thing will I be satisfied. Anger is completely narrow vision. Think of the implications of what we're doing. That I could have, who knows? This person is very. Let me just say, they may not have forgiven me easily for saying that, no matter how justified I was. And also, it was going on record. They could then tell everyone, I didn't do anything at all. I was completely innocent. And he called me and said all these things. And it goes up on websites and on Twitter and. So sometimes it's helpful not to put things in writing or out there that then can come back to haunt you. And in this particular case, I didn't know the person that well. And I feel that I was protected or stopped, but I was also told. And I also listened, but barely, but I listened. So again, ask God for help at all times. But if we step out of that protection, we get burned. And then it says, they're withered, they're set in the fire, and they're burned. What does it mean? What does it mean if we don't learn our lessons in this life? Not much on one level. We just start again. And we have gained a little bit of wisdom, and so then we, hopefully make fewer mistakes and so on. This is just how it goes for everybody. And so you could argue that, well, if I live a bad life or I live a good life, if I don't graduate, I just start over again. And guess what? I won't even know. I don't know what happened in my last life much. Or maybe not at all. Or maybe I do. But anyway. So if I don't know, what does it matter? And that's the point. What does it matter? Master writes in Autobiography of a Yogi that for devotees, for seekers of God, the repetition of each life starts to take on an anguishing monotony. You start to feel just this pain of dissatisfaction because there's more. And then you find it in God. That's what drives most of us onto the path and has driven most of us onto the path in this life. It is not discovering the path, it is remembering the path. And how did we remember? Because we were being chased with a pitchfork or a knife behind us. What's the solution? Oh, that's right, Kriya Yoga. Oh, thank God. You see, we come back to it because we remember, this world, I've seen enough. It doesn't mean we don't enjoy the world and different things. But my point is we remember the way out because we've been trying at it for a long time. So let's get out. So if someone says, what does it matter if I am reborn, if I don't remember, doesn't bother me, then that's true for them. But it bothers me. It bothers us. There's again that hunger that isn't satisfied yet. And that's what drives us. That's what she says in this song. Divine Mother says, leave to the weak his craven life. To the coward leave his dreaming. Oh, my saint. You're saying, saint? Nane, Yes, to each one of us. She's saying, oh, my saint, wake up. Reclaim the light. Seek the truth behind all seeking. Turn within, as Prasanna was saying. In silence of soul, in cave of love, find my abode. Abode is where someone abides. That's where they live, their home. Find my abode. And that's what she's saying to all of us. This is what will work for you. This is what will work for everyone, but let them work it out. Leave it to them. She's not saying, leave to the weak his craven life. What a fool he is. Let's get together and laugh at him. No. She's saying, he'll get there. But you get there. Put your own oxygen mask on first. Okay? And that's what we saw in Master. That's what we saw in Swamiji. I didn't see Master. That's what we saw in Swamiji. He just radiated that. And what do we actually do to live in God? I wanted to share with you something somebody wrote me. Because meditate, chant, come to satsang, spend time with other devotees, read Autobiography of a Yogi, listen to Master and Swamiji's talks, all these things. He said, I wanted to share something with you. Around 2 to 3 months ago, I heard the videos of the Bhagavad Gita spoken by Swami Kriyananda. I couldn't explain the transformation it has made. I heard all the videos twice, and since then I feel like it has made me a much better person. Previously, most of the days I used to feel unpleasant about my job being hectic, and I felt like quitting. But now I understand that everything is a lesson for me, and I am not getting upset often like before by what's happening. And why is it? Because of, on the second video, Swamiji said one sentence and then he remembered that forever? Maybe. But more often than not, it's just by the daily dose of healthful, refreshing satsang with Swamiji. The daily, just like we brush our teeth, we brush our hearts clean by some kind of spending time with the Guru, spending time with the masters. And the cumulative effect, that's my point, that all of this is cumulative, that over time we change, spending time in their company. Yes, meditate, yes, chant, yes, pray, but also spend time with those who are more evolved than you. Again, Master and Swamiji, spend time with them because they feed us in a particular way. They give us a set of vitamins. We need input also. It can't just be all inside unless we're particularly advanced and all we get is truth. And if anyone says, yes, yes, that's me, beware. So ask for help and get help, and then we will all live in God in time. God bless you.